What's going on, guys? AJ Anxiety here again with another RuneScape video, and in this video I wanted to go over the new interface system that's been out for I guess quite some time now in RuneScape 3, and also the ability bar setup options that I have, and I wanted to give you some tips on how to free up some of the clutter and maybe organize your interface system a little bit more efficiently for combat and for, well, anything in general. So as you can see, here on the left I have my chat box with all the chat options, and on the right I have my inventory, and up top in the right corner I have the minimap. And this is fairly similar to the original layout of the RuneScape UI, and I wanted to keep something similar to that but also have enough visibility in boss rooms and stuff like that to clear up some screen space. Now, here on the left in the chat box, as you see, I've got global chat, and it's fairly big. I've got a fairly big monitor, so I have a lot of screen space. I will show you guys a smaller version of this if you're playing on laptops and stuff like that. But yeah, as you can see, I've got my global chat here, private chat next to it. You can split the private chat. You can customize a little bit like that. It's up to you, really, whether you want to split private chat or not. I feel like I have mine set up pretty decently. Next to that we have friends chat, and then my friends list, which shows me everyone who's online. And then we've got clan chat, and then the clan list shows me everyone in the clan. Trade and assistance, which was added not too long ago, and then guest clan chat, which I never use and kind of bothers me because you can't delete it. You can't move this tab out and then move it back up into here, but that's okay. The main thing I wanted to get rid of when setting up my interface was the scrolling options on the sides. When you have too many tabs, you get these little these arrows that scrolls right to left to show you all the available options. And since I've got enough screen space, I figured I could rearrange all my stuff so that I can eliminate those completely. Now, as far as the chat box goes, I feel like these are all necessary to be similar to the way the old UI was. You've got your global chat, private chat, friends chat, your friends list, clan chat, clan, trade, screen, and guest clan chat, all in the same interface. And that's pretty much it for the chat box. Of course, you can add more stuff in there, make it a little bit wider, customize it how you see fit. But keep in mind that with every extra tab you add is obviously going to add clutter and possibly even add the arrows, which personally they annoy me, but if you don't really mind, then it doesn't really matter. And over here on the right, in the bottom right hand corner, you can see we have our inventory, our skills tab, our equipment tab, prayer abilities, magic, which the magic abilities is still combined with combat spells and skilling spells and teleport spells, so that's the reason I have those there. I don't really ever keep it on the abilities because all the abilities are stored in my ability bar, obviously. I see a lot of people having just really jacked up interfaces. They're super cluttered and stuff like that, and they have all these unnecessary things going on in their interface, which makes it really hard to navigate. So having your interface clutter-free like this definitely helps speed up reaction times when navigating through your tabs and stuff like that. Over on beside the magic tab, we have our familiar, which right now is just my pet Freezy. Say hello. Hi, Freezy. Hello. And lastly, we have the emotes. This was also part of the inventory, I guess, section of the UI previous to RS3, and I felt like we had enough room here to squeeze that in. I originally had it over here on the chat box, but I felt like we had enough room to squeeze it in over here. And it's pretty self-explanatory for the minimap. I have fairly decent sized minimap. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. It's really up to you. You can obviously customize this any way you see fit, but if you want something simple, efficient, and clean, clutter-free, you kind of want to go with something like this. I like to have my skill counter right here because I don't like having anything right here except for that. Obviously, if you want, you can move it up here and stuff like that. I've got my status effects, I guess that's what they're called, right here above the ability bar so I can see what's going on at any time. As you can see, I've got momentum on right now. I'll open up edit mode and show you how I have everything else as far as my gameplay HUDs laid out. As you can see, yes, there's my buffs. Yeah, that's what they're called, buffs. My game dialog appears over my hotbar here in the middle. Because if you're in game dialog, you're not going to be using your abilities that I can see. So I figured why not throw it over there. I've got my crafting stuff over fairly centered. Some of this stuff is getting moved around without my consent. Central interface right here, which pops up for like farming and stuff like that, and teleports. The bank pops up in the center of my UI so that I can still access my UI and at least see chat when I'm banking and stuff like that. Grave interface over here to the left, just in case you don't want your grave interface popping up when you're picking your stuff up if you're getting attacked or something like that, and you can't see your health bar and you might die and then lose all your shit because when you die again your gravestone disappears. We've got area status here, crafting process, new task. That's all fairly centered within my interface. Oops, I just moved my ability bar. That's okay, we can reset it just like that. But yeah, it's fairly simple, fairly clean, straightforward, clutter-free. But yeah, as far as the interface goes, I like to keep it simple. If you're going to change your abilities and stuff, you can still access your ranged abilities and stuff like that here. So I don't see any need in having them open on the interface at any time. So if I want to change my ability layouts, I'll just open that and it pops up down here. And then when I'm done with it, I'll close it back just by clicking on that, and it restores my interface to the way it was previously. And I think that's pretty much it. I keep this up in the top corner because having it below anything on the interface clutters it up when you go to open stuff up. So I figured this was the most efficient place for it to be, in the top left corner, because no one ever really, there wasn't really much going on in the top left corner of the original interface anyway. So I figured that'd be a good place to put it. And you can still access everything else in here. You got your, what is that for? That's for like membership and extras and stuff, like, yeah, Solomon General Store and stuff like that. And you got your quest stuff. I like to keep the quest stuff in the UI up here because that's not something you really need unless you're questing. Mini games, tasks, pretty much those all would stay up here. Now, if you're a big tasker or whatever, you could obviously open up your task stuff and put it right here. That's a good place to put it. It's out of the way and it's fairly slim, you know, especially if you're tasking. You're not really going to need that section of your screen. Well, let's get back to cutting here. But yeah, I don't do too much tasking, so I just like to have it empty so that I get more screen space out of it. Let's see what else. All this stuff fairly straightforward. Skill guide, all that stuff stays in here. And pretty much as far as the UI goes, like I said, I like to keep it simple and clutter-free. And to me, this is, in my opinion, one of the best layouts I could come up with personally. I don't like using any of the stock layouts. I think they're too cluttered, too small. So as far as my personal opinion goes, I feel like this is one of the best layouts to have if you're going for something similar to the older layout, like the older pre-EOC UI layout. It's fairly straightforward. Like I said, obviously the chat box was stretched across to the inventory stuff and stuff like that, but given that we have an ability bar now, you really could sacrifice some of that chat space, because in reality, I mean, you don't need your chat box going across the whole thing. I can see everything that's going on here really easily. I really don't have any problems. I mean, the text wraps around to the next line and stuff too, so I don't really have problems missing chat. It's big enough to where I can read it and stuff like that. Now, as far as the hotbar goes, or the ability bar, whatever you want to call it, as far as that goes, I like to have my setups in order. For action bar 1, I like to have that set up for a melee shield. So that's got like, these set up for my melee shield, and then it's got like this one to break free of stuns and anything shield abilities, stuff like that, and then momentum. For 2, I believe 2 is two-handed. Yeah, 2 is my two-handed ability bar for melee. I have obviously all my two-handed abilities set up, and I use this one very much for dungeoneering. That's why I have what is this called? It's not regenerate. Oh, it is regenerate. Yeah, I have that on there. I use it a lot for dungeoneering, but usually when I'm on RuneScape's surface, I use dual wielding of my chaotic rapiers, and I have number 3 is set up for dual wielding. And I use this a lot for frost dragons and stuff like that, so I've got it set up like that with all my dual wielding on number 3, and number 4 is ranged. And since I use so much of my ability bars for different melee setups, whenever I change from two-hand to dual wielding on ranged, I usually just open up my ranged abilities and swap out the few that are specific. Like I think this one here is specific to dual wielding, and so is this one. So there's only 2 abilities I ever have to swap out when I change setups, which isn't that bad considering I don't have to change any other of my abilities at any given time. And lastly, number 5 is mage, and I don't really ever dual wield with mage. I usually go for two-hand, like Staff of Light and stuff like that, just because I don't know. I think most of the dual wielding stuff for mage is pretty underpowered. It's not really worth it. I'm not sure. I don't do too much mage, but I do have it set up, and it would be just the same as the ranged ability bar, where if I did have to change something out, it'd only be 1 or 2 abilities specific to dual wielding or two-handed. But like I said, I don't do too much dual wielding, so I don't really ever have to change anything out. And as far as for my button layout, the way I have my keybinds set up are ASDF. So it's similar to like if you're playing a shooter, you have WASD. I like to have my hand on the left side of the keyboard. So I have ASDF for my first 4 basic abilities. And what that allows me to do is just keep timing those regularly when I'm building up adrenaline. And then I also have a basic on Q as well. Oops. What happened? Anyway, I also have a basic on Q as well. Because I only have 3, I think it's 3 thresholds here. And for my thresholds, I go all the way up to T for that one. For the ultimate, I usually only have 1 ultimate on my ability bar at a time. So this allows me to keybind other things. Say I've got my, what is that, quick inventory B. I have that bound to G because most of the time that's where food goes. So if I'm using abilities and I need to hop over and get food, instead of running over, or instead of moving my mouse over to my inventory to click the food, I just keybind this to G, and I'll just hit G. It'll eat the shark for me, and I can continue clicking on frost dragons or whatever I'm killing. And then usually for my inventory A, I usually have that set to H just because it's a little bit extra of a reach. I usually use that one for like anti-dragon fire potions or any kind of potion that you're not going to immediately need. I suppose you could move it to a lower keybind like V or C or whatever you're comfortable with. But me personally, this is how I like to have it set up. And for the prayers are fairly easy to reach. That's why I have them on 1, 2, 3. The last 3 right here. I feel like those are efficient for prayers because I find this setup perfectly efficient with 5 basic abilities, 3 thresholds, 1 ultimate. I think, to me personally, that's the best way to have it set up, because then you can have your prayers on the hotbar too. Just hit 2, there you go, you got Turmoil on. Hit 3, there you go, you activated Soul Split. You know, and it's instantaneous. You just click that. You don't even have to move your mouse down here to do it. You can still be clicking on your monster, or, you know, doing whatever you have to do to move your character around the map. Say if you're doing Nex or something like that, and you have to leave the area because of a certain status effect or whatever kind of monsters. Even in Dungeoneering, it comes in pretty handy. And I think that might pretty much be it. As far as the interface system goes, I think we covered everything. And as far as the hotbar goes, I think I explained everything fairly decently. Oh yes, quick curses or quick prayers. Let's go over that real quick. You want to select your quick curses or prayers or whatever to be something like, I have here Berserker, and sometimes people like to have Protect Item. That's not a bad idea. Personally, I don't use it unless I'm doing something I'm doing for the first time, like a certain monster or boss. I don't hardly ever use it. But I use Berserker a lot, so when I pot up, like drink my extremes or overloads or whatever, I'll just tap that real quick, and then it prolongs the amount of time that my boosts are active. So it's really handy. Excuse me. It's really handy for stuff like that. You can bind anything like that to it, leech curses, or even protect prayers. But personally, me, I like to have my active prayers that I activate on and off down here, so I can hit the button and control how much prayer I'm draining at any one time, so it's not just sitting there constantly draining my prayer and excessively using prayer that you're not necessarily benefiting from. But yeah, as you can see, my bank interface actually fits snugly in the center of my other interface. And I prefer it this way. Given that they gave us the inventory here, I kind of moved over my mini-map a little bit. You don't really need too big of a mini-map. I don't really see the point in it. It's only going to render but so far on the mini-map anyway. So, I mean, it's kind of pointless. But like I said, if you prefer it bigger or maybe not as big, it's all in a simple resize. Now, as I said earlier, if you're playing on a smaller screen and you don't, I know when I move over to my laptop, this gets cluttered because it's a smaller screen. I do have a second layout for that, and it's pretty much the same layout as you can see here, except everything's clumped together a little bit more. I clumped this together and clumped the ability bar together. I also made the inventory section smaller. I took out the emote tab and moved it over here because, I mean, it's not that necessary to have your emotes accessible at any given time. I mean, unless you're video making or something, it's not really a priority, especially when you're bossing. I don't think I've ever used an emote while I'm bossing. So, yes, I moved it over there. It's still pretty much the same layout. I have global chat, private chat, friends chat, friends, clan. I think maybe the tabs are in a little bit different order than the other one. But I've got emotes here at the end past the trade screen and guest clan chat. And this is what I was talking about earlier, these arrows. I don't really like them too much because it just adds a little bit of extra clutter. Granted, it's still pretty clean layout. Just having to scroll through it, especially for combat. I know if you're doing some combat stuff, you would not want any scrolls over here on this side because it would clutter it up, and having to scroll through to, like, say, get to your prayer tab would probably mean that you're going to die. So as far as that scrolling stuff is concerned, over here in the chat box, it's not really a big deal because, you know, you're not going to be needing to immediately tab over to chat to save your character's life if you're in say Frost Dragons or Nex or God Wars Dungeon or something like that. But yeah, it's pretty much the same layout, just a little bit more compact, perfect for laptops and smaller displays. I use it on my laptop all the time, and then when I get back on my desktop, I just switch back over to custom one, and I'm good to go. And I prefer this one more for my desktop, obviously, because I've got more screen space, and why not utilize it, have a little bit bigger UI so that you can see things a lot easier. But I mean, that's pretty much it. You guys obviously are welcome to make your own. Post in the comments any suggestions you have, or maybe any improvements to this one you might consider doing, or even make a video showing me your specific layout and your reasons behind it. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think about my interface system. So if you think this interface layout is good, give it a thumbs up. Definitely give it a subscribe. And like I said, post in the comments. Let me know what you think, good or bad. Have some constructive criticism. Let me know why you don't like it. Don't just hate on it to hate on it. But yeah, and if nothing else, show this video to one of your friends who has a really cluttered layout and maybe help ease his RuneScape life a little bit. But thank you guys for watching so much. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Later.